Hello and welcome to Cycles of Time, a podcast about remembering how to live in rhythm. Here, we explore the art of thriving within life's changing seasons through the living languages of astrology, human design, the I Ching, the 5 elements, and the wheel of the year. Each episode is a study in timing and embodiment, an invitation to feel the pulse of where you are and what's unfolding. Through a somatically informed lens, we ask not only what's happening in the stars, but how it moves through your body, how you can align your choices, your energy, and your creative expression with the greater currents of time. Because when you understand the cycles, you stop fighting the seasons. You learn to move with them. I'm your host, Allison Dale, and this is Cycles of Time podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cycles of Time podcast. Thank you for being here. Today, I am super excited to be chatting about all things Scorpio for this Scorpio season episode with a friend of mine, a human design guide, and a tea house tender, among many other things, Sarah Belpedio. She is someone who has a deep understanding of Scorpio, and that it comes from lived experience, having a stellium of 4 planets, including the sun and moon in Scorpio. And since I've gotten to know her over the past year, I've really gotten to understand the depth to which she brings everything that she does. And it is just a beautiful conversation ahead that I think you'll really learn a lot from about the human design gates of Scorpio season, the pagan holy days, Samhain, that is today, if you're listening to this on release, and just the lessons and the beauty that comes with this season and with the Scorpio archetype. So a little bit about Sarah. Sarah is a yin warrior, a tea house tender, and a curator of vibe and space, I would say. She weaves human design through a Taoist lens and guides others to live and work in harmony with the natural flow of energy in this way. She's also a regenerative business consultant, helping creatives and entrepreneurs design their systems and offerings as living regenerative ecosystems. And all of her work is steeped in a quiet strength and an embodied wisdom. And she really cultivates beauty as a spiritual practice. It's been a real honor to get to know Sarah over the past year. We participate in some martial arts and qigong classes together, and having her presence in that space has been just such a gift. And I'm really inspired by the work she's doing within the human design space, really bringing that Taoist lens, integrating a lot of different modalities, and just going to the depths with the system of human design. She's one of the people that I turn to when I have a human design question, as I go through this process of weaving it into my work. And so I definitely recommend listening ahead. It's a rather long conversation. We get into all the nooks and crannies of the season of the Scorpion, as well as some of her personal experiences having some of these gates activated in her chart. So grab a cup of tea, put your feet up, and enjoy the Scorpio season conversation. Have a beautiful Samhain, Halloween, Dia de Muertos, however it is that you celebrate this time of year. And before we jump in, just one quick announcement. I always like to just mention that you can follow me on Instagram or on Substack. On Instagram, I'm at astro.somatics, is where I post most of my stuff. And I'm at Cycles of Time on Substack, cyclesoftime.substack.com. And that's just where you're going to get a lot more articles and information about these cycles of time when I'm doing a little less podcasting. But I am excited to be jumping into the podcasting interview space again, chatting with other folks. And I have some really exciting interviews lined up about the paradigm shift project that I'm doing, about the bigger cycles that are approaching over the course of the upcoming few years. And so I welcome you to, follow this podcast, subscribe, give it a 5-star review. Anything that you do in that regard helps me reach more more of an audience and reach more people who might benefit from this work. So thank you for your words, your reviews, your stars, hearts, all of those things. It's truly makes a big difference in this labor of love. And I do have my books open for astrology and human design readings. You can find my offerings at astrosomatics.com. And this upcoming Wednesday, November 5th at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, I am doing my monthly zodiac season breathwork journey. And so I welcome you to join me for that. We go over the archetypes and elements of the season and then go into a conscious, connected, revolutionary breathwork session to really integrate these modalities into the body and just give our brains a little bit of a pause and tap into our body's wisdom. So you can find that in the show notes. I'll post a link for that event. And it's also at astrosomatics.com, where you can find everything about me and my work. I'll also be posting Sarah's information in the show notes if you would like to book a reading with her or find more of her writings and work. So check out the show notes, check out Cycles of Time Substack for a little bit more of that information, and enjoy the episode. Here is Sarah Belpedio. I'm really excited to have you here today, Sarah. Welcome to Cycles of Time.
Thank you so much, Allison. I'm so excited and grateful to be invited to speak about my favorite topic, which is Scorpio. And yeah, it's been really beautiful to also see the ways that our worlds have kind of like come together over the last year. I actually met you on my birthday in Scorpio season last year, and we just more recently started connecting and deep talks after qigong, and I was like, I would love to dive deeper into Scorpio with you, and so here we are. Really grateful.
Here we are. It's one of my favorite seasons too, and I know that you have a lot of Scorpio placements and that you have had some experience really diving into kind of the deep layers as far as what these different energies mean, the different gates of Scorpio season. So I'm so excited to pick your brain and just get some knowledge about that. So yeah, this is going to be awesome. I usually do a recording. I push myself to do a recording for the beginning of the season, but it's nice that we're kind of deeper into Scorpio season now in a certain way, because I'm just really feeling the Scorpio energy with Mars and Black Moon Lilith and the Sun all cohabitating in Scorpio right now. It definitely feels very Scorpionic, and we're celebrating Halloween this week, Samhain, on Friday. And so I think it's a really great time to just give the lay of the land as far as what Scorpio season is from a up close and personal level. So yeah, I'd love if you could start by just giving our audience a little bit of insight into who you are, what it is that you do out in the world, what you're excited about right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe starting with my human design and my astrology. So I am a Scorpio Sun, Scorpio Moon, Scorpio Mercury, and Scorpio Pluto. So I have 4 planets in Scorpio. And I'm a 2/4 splenic projector, and my sun is in the spleen as well, in gate 28, which we will get into. And my moon is also in the spleen, in gate 44. And so a lot of these splenic gates are found in Scorpio season, and so I'm sure we'll get into a little bit more of what that means. I am a human design reader guide. I found human design a little over 5 years ago, and it upon receiving the book and reading the book, it felt like information that I already knew. It absolutely was a kind of awakening of this information that was like latent in my cells, and finally helped me or gave me really affirmed the things that I deeply felt about the world. And I think saw as, being this, having all of the Scorpio penetrating through to beyond the veil. This human design information really helped me have language to the things that I've kind of been tuning into and seeing from a really young age. I am on the cross of the unexpected in human design. That's my incarnation cross. And this cross is very much about like unexpected leadership, and we'll get into that a little bit more when we get into gate 27 or gate 28. Um but yeah, maybe I'll save the rest of that for
Okay,
when we get into
awesome.
28. And then as far as what else I do, so I have my Scorpio stellium is in the second house. And I do regenerative business consulting as well for entrepreneurs. And it's been really fun to I have a background in corporate. I used to work in management consulting for a big global firm. And then I left all of that during my Saturn return and started doing human design and getting into all of that stuff. And now I'm really bringing those worlds together. And I've been really surprised how many of these like older corporate men are actually really interested in learning about their human design and open to more of this mystical and esoteric knowledge. So that's been really, really cool to bring those worlds together. And I live here in Santa Fe, New Mexico from San Diego, California. Um, yeah, I'll leave it at that for now.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. And you just celebrated a birthday on Sunday, so
I
happy birthday,
did.
happy belated birthday. Got to do a little bit of celebration and wine and cheese and ritual with you, which was
Yes.
so fun. Did you celebrate your birthday, on the day of in any specific way this year?
It was very mundane and low key, which felt really beautiful. I just kind of hung out by myself. I took myself out to dinner, and that felt really kind of symbolic for this whole transformation, death, and rebirth that I've been through. Healing a lot of codependent and enmeshed patterns, which absolutely, can are Scorpio challenges because we just so easily merge with everything and everyone around us. We don't always have a clear sense of, our skin versus the other skin. And then, throw being a projector into the mix on top of that. There is this real desire to merge. And so this initiation and ceremony that I felt called to ask my friend to support. And this rite of passage ceremony was really about, yeah, coming into my own skin and really just like enjoying my own presence. I love people so much. Scorpio is so relationally oriented. But it's been nice to also remember how much I receive just through steeping in my own presence as well. And so had a fun night going out to dinner and yeah, I felt really this birthday just felt deeply satisfying.
Oh,
Um Something else we can maybe get into with for those of you that are listening who are Scorpio suns, that means that your design sun, so the sun of your body, is in Leo. And just in reflecting on my ceremony, it really actually felt like it was like my Leo body that was guiding the ceremony and really wanting to like take center stage and be seen and receive love and affirmation and all of that. So a lot of times we think of Scorpio as being like really dramatic, but I think a lot of that is actually the unconscious Leo as well, that is that like performer and loves the drama and loves, playing a role and receiving attention and all of that. And so this birthday felt like a really beautiful integration of these two archetypes and honoring both of them.
I love that so much. That is, yeah, something I hadn't really thought about before. So, in human design, there's the conscious side, which is your birth chart, the same as your astrological birth chart. And then there is 88 degrees, solar arc degrees before is your unconscious side, right? So, that would always put Scorpio sun into Leo season and the fixed signs of Leo and, Leo's fixed fire and Scorpio's fixed water. And so they carry different energies. But I love that you're bringing those together on this birthday. Like that was very apparent when I was witnessing you in your ritual of just coming into your own in that way, shedding some skin so that you could be fully yourself. And you mentioned death and rebirth in there. That's definitely a scorpionic trait, a scorpionic kind of association. And I love that shedding skins, the Scorpio is, the scorpion, but also the serpent and the eagle and the phoenix, this transformative totem and archetype that goes through many different iterations. And so I think you're bringing that all together in this birth year and this solar return. And it's just so beautiful to witness that. Yeah.
It's interesting now that you talk about the phoenix. Yeah, like that feels like I feel that Leo energy in there, right? It's
Yeah. The
like we
fire
do
is
kind of
in
like
it.
need to pull upon that energy of Leo. And even if it's not you're not a Scorpio sun, Scorpio is squared by Leo and Aquarius. And so these archetypes all do, relate to one another in some way. And I think through I was so deeply focused on like the Scorpio and the death and all of that. And I think playing more with like the Leo archetype and the Aquarius archetype helped kind of bring in some levity and some space for me to get out of some of that like dark heaviness, which can be, Scorpio can get stuck down in there with that fixed water, right? There is that tenacity, but also capacity to just kind of stew in the darkness for longer than is necessary.
Mhm.
Um, and anyways, I won't take us on too much of a tangent there.
No, I just love the evocative imagery and, yeah, thinking about you're right, the Aquarius being this air sign that the eagle and the phoenix can represent in that way, and then Leo being the fire, bringing that kind of really fiery, just roaring energy, and then, yeah, Scorpio there in the middle having that ability to go underground and be reborn in this new way, and so they are all very connected through this archetype, which I love so much. Yeah, I'm curious how you discovered Scorpio. Were you a child? Did you know about your zodiac sign when you were young, or how did Scorpio come into your life, if you remember?
Mm. Well, my uncle was an astrologer. And so my birth chart was done when I was born.
Amazing.
And my uncle told my parents to watch out because of all of the Scorpio double, double I guess technically I'm a double Scorpio because of the sun and moon, but I do have 4 planets there, so sometimes I just like to say I'm a quadruple Scorpio. And people are like, "What?" Um, didn't even know that was an option. But yeah, I think he sensed that there was a lot of power in my chart that could be used, for good or for bad. I also have the alpha channel in human design, and the keynote for that is a leadership for good or for bad. It's not necessarily written in the stars what way you'll go with that.
Mhm.
And so I never really knew what that meant, but I just remember this phrase like "watch out."
Mm.
And I didn't my parents weren't very studied in astrology or anything like that, and so I would say that was kind of the extent of my understanding of Scorpio until maybe high school when I started diving into astrology a bit more. Um, and yeah, always like my best friend was an Aries. I'm a Libra rising, so I have Aries on my descendant. So I'll have tons of Aries in my life, and that Aries Scorpio relationship is really funny. Both of them, ruled by Mars. So there is like a connection, but there's also, I feel like, Aries is very like young and Scorpio is very old. And so there can kind of be that fun, playful tension between them. And then, yeah, I definitely didn't dive like deeper into astrology until probably like my mid 20s, leading up to when I ended up learning about human design. And then since then, I've been, deep diving into all of this stuff. I resonate with a lot of different astrology modalities. I've dipped my toes in evolutionary astrology, just like Hellenistic traditional astrology. Um, there's this woman I follow who calls her form of astrology galactic esoteric astrology. I love all of the astrology and all of the different takes and perspectives on these archetypes. And then learning about human design and being able to dive into the specific gates of Scorpio is what really like kind of brought Scorpio to life and felt like a more complete picture of Scorpio. Obviously, Scorpio is like one of the most love to hate of the zodiac and has like such a reputation around it. Um because I do think it has a really broad range. And there is a lot of intensity and a lot of power. Um and being, associated with the eighth house, everything that is taboo, the esoteric, the mystical, all of the things that in Western society we like to avoid and pretend are not there, or discount. So I think there's just a lot that's really misunderstood about Scorpio, and so I like to be an ambassador for my archetype and help people understand, yeah, just like a more holistic picture of Scorpio, and that I just made a reel about this, but like that Scorpio isn't actually like that serious. There is this ability to like bring lightness, bring light to the dark, to bring
Uh-huh.
consciousness to what is unconscious. And there really is this like trickster energy with Scorpio as well, where we're able to just really like see the absurdity of the human condition here on earth and laugh at it and remember that it's actually not all that serious, even though sometimes, Scorpio can absolutely be very dramatic and think of things as being like life or death. There is also like a levity and a humor that I feel is a really like intrinsic part of Scorpio as well. Yeah,
Amazing, amazing. I love that you bring up all of these modalities of astrology as well as, the rulership of Mars and yeah, the stereotype of Scorpio not being the full picture because I think I definitely relate to that as a Virgo. I think that in my Virgo season podcast episode, I talked to that with our mutual friend Cody just about speaking to how there's definitely some signs have, it seems a little bit more of a pigeonholed perception. And Scorpio can definitely, it's sexual, it's underworldly, it's dark, it's got certain qualities associated with it. I saw a reel this morning that said, yeah, there's intensity, there's darkness, there's all of these different adjectives that you attribute, but what she was bringing to the table, this was Lily Hussey, another Santa Fe astrologer, she was talking about strategy being a really key adjective to
mm,
describe Scorpio, very strategic. And that was something that I don't think I've actually ever heard, but I really do relate to that when I think about the Scorpionic people with Scorpio placements in my life. There's definitely a high degree of strategy and intelligence that is Martian in a certain way. I do feel that there's a certain it's not just strategic, it's strategic to act. It's like acting with strategy. And so yeah,
totally.
I'm curious what you think about that and also about the maybe one reason why we associate Scorpio so much with the underworld is because of the modern ruler who is Pluto. So in
Mhm.
traditional astrology, of course, we didn't know about Pluto and Uranus and Neptune and these outer planets. And so since they've been discovered, they've been given to a sign as an additional ruler. But I love when there's multiple signs that are ruled by a single planet in traditional astrology. Virgo and Gemini are both Mercury, but they're very different signs as well, but both have a certain quality. So, yeah, I'd love if you could speak to just a little bit more about this planetary magic when it comes to both Mars and
Totally.
Pluto.
Yeah. Well, the first thing that came to mind when you were talking about strategy, this is like a super nerdy human design thing, so I'm not going to get too into it, but the godhead for my godhead and the godhead for most of Scorpio season is Minerva, Athena, and she is very associated with strategy, with, you know, warrior leadership, with, yeah, all of that. And my son is in gate 28, the gate of the game player, and it's all about risk taking. And this is a very common gate that you see in entrepreneurs, in people that are very successful. I have the same birthday as Bill Gates, and Hillary Clinton. So like there's a lot of like big leadership, strategy, energy, specifically with the sun in 28, which is we're recording from the sun in 28.5 right now. So we're really like in this energy right now, which I love to like actually really love recording these kinds of episodes when we're in the energy. Um and and I think living here on my Mars line, I'm in Santa Fe. I'm living here on my Mars line, and so I feel like I've been in this kind of like Mars rectification process where I haven't actually, in the past, I think, felt very connected to the Martian side of Scorpio.
Mm.
Um, and I think that's partially because I have Mars in Cancer, and so Mars is technically in its either fall or detriment in Cancer. Um, and so it was harder for me to kind of connect with that energy. And I really feel like Mars is what called me to Santa Fe to bring this part of me online. And because this Mars archetype has been more repressed in my consciousness, I think it has manifested in the past in a lot of the really like shadow Scorpio um aspects, covert manipulation and um that being a big one. And also manifesting, subconsciously manifesting relational conflicts and stuff like that because I'm not actually allowing this part of me that's very direct
Mm.
to come online. And on top of it, this season, as I've kind of been culminating this initiation and crossing this threshold, Mars has been transiting Scorpio. Black Moon Lilith has been transiting my whole Scorpio stellium since back in the spring. So, like,
Wow.
yeah, Lilith came for me and was like, we need to like work through some of these shadow Scorpio things so you can really bring this power to bear in a way that is responsible. And so I think that's really like Mars and Pluto working together. They want to support us in learning how to wield our power responsibly. And I think the way that we learn that is through surrendering to an underworld journey and going into the depths of, darkness and one seeing all of these powers that we have been repressed, that we have not actually allowed to surface and be expressed in our life. And so when we don't allow them to express, when they are repressed, that energy still comes out of us. It just comes out distorted. And so that's been a lot of my journey working with working with I actually, and as you know, Pluto's been squaring my Scorpio stellium as well. So I feel like I've like my co-rulership, like I'm just having a lot of transits that are like activating me and
Mhm.
initiating me into moving out of that scorpion and more into that eagle and that phoenix archetype.
I love
There's
that.
more I could
That
say,
that is
Val.
Yeah. No, that's so true. You brought a lot to the table there with Mars, Black Moon, Lilith in, during this time, transiting your stellium, as well as the Pluto in Aquarius, having just entered Aquarius, will be squaring Scorpio by sign for the next 20 years, right? And so there's a lot of fixed energy that Pluto's bringing to the table right now as far as exposing what has been buried, what's in the basement, kind of redoing the foundation of a lot of fixed signs through whether it's squares or oppositions to those signs. I have a lot of Leo placements, and I also have Saturn at 1 degree of Scorpio, and so I'm in Pluto square Saturn with that scorpionic influence myself as well. And so I definitely resonate with how that is. Yeah, it's calling us to the stand and to the table in a
Yeah.
very real way. I see squares as that kind of energy where it's like standing at a table where you're being confronted or you're walking through a doorway. There's these square angles that can be very very much manifested in the tangible world, and you're not looking directly across from it, but you're having this opportunity to work with that tension and walk through that threshold. And so yeah, seeing both Mars and Pluto being activated in that way for you, how has it felt? Like how's it been going?
Yeah. Well, I want to say that squares are the necessary tension for transformation. And
Mm-hmm.
Scorpio obviously is all about transformation. That's Scorpio's MO. And I'm very familiar with squares. My whole Scorpio stellium is squared by Saturn. So just like the whole understanding even what a square is and what its purpose is something I've really been sitting with since my Saturn return. And I think that squares really force us to mature.
Mm-hmm.
They force us to mature and learn how to work within limitation to transcend limitation. But really, all creation comes through squares. So, and again, this might be a little nerdy for some people, but going back to what Allison was sharing about, in human design, we have the personality side or the conscious side, which maps directly to what you would see on your astrology chart. And then you have a calculation 88 degrees before you're born. And what that actually is a square. So it creates
Right.
a square in the chart, and that tension of that square is what gives birth to you. It's what creates life. And so as absolutely insane and intense as this Scorpio squaring my sun has been, it started back in February and came for every corner of my life, really asking me to surrender over and over and over again. A lot of relational ruptures, a lot of business partnerships falling apart, my housing falling apart, like really everything. Pluto asked for everything and asked for trust and surrender. And now I am on the other side. And I can confidently say it was all worth it.
Mm.
But there was some, sitting in the depths of darkness, sitting in a dark night of the soul. And really in that moment of just not resisting what was happening. Once I stopped resisting all of the destruction and upheaval that Pluto was bringing, I started to really see the magic in it. And things did really start to kind of come together fairly quickly after I fully surrendered the illusion of control and fighting
Mm.
what was happening. And I think the main reason I was fighting what was happening is because I thought that I'd just done this. I'm
Yeah.
Scorpio, or I'm Saturn in Aquarius. So, I had my Saturn return went back when Saturn was in Aquarius, about a Saturn cycle ago. And where Pluto is transiting now is where I have my Saturn. And so I was like, I'm just out of my Saturn return now. Like, why? Like, why is there more death? I've been in a constant state of death for 5 years. And
Mm-hmm.
I keep thinking that it's like time to move on to the rebirth, but it's like, no, more death, more death, more death, more death, more death. And I'm like, what else is there? And that's the point I got to,
Yeah.
in August. I was just like, I don't actually think there's anything else that you can take from me that I can sacrifice. Like, there's nothing left.
Yeah.
And I understand how important that emptying process is, because there is a whole new life that I am receiving now. And if I was clinging to these old patterns and relationships and things, I wouldn't have the space in my life to be able to receive them. So
Yeah.
it's been
That's so
intense, but worth it. But I
Godspeed.
will
You
say
made it. You've made it through this one,
Pluto's
you know.
But Pluto's a little bit off of it. Pluto is exactly squaring my sun. Now Pluto, I think, is back at 1 degree. My sun is at 3 degrees. So he's coming back for my sun. So I probably
Right, the
shouldn't
long
get too excited
retrogrades.
and get ahead
Yeah,
of
the
myself.
long retrogrades of the outer planets. You're like, "Wait, how many years is this?" When you start to look at it, it's like so then you that for me, when I look at that, it definitely is like surrender is the only way. And, the whole
Yeah.
notion with the phoenix being like, you can't the phoenix won't rise from a chunk of burned wood. The phoenix has to rise from actual ashes. Like the finer the ashes, the more beautiful the
Mm.
phoenix, right? Like it has to burn all the way to the
Mhm.
ground to actually get to that point. And that feels intense, right? Because you're like, yeah, what else is there left to burn? Or when you fight with it, when you try to try to kind of stave it off. Like I heard a story, I forgot where I heard this, but it was kind of an example of a Pluto transit where this guy was like, "Oh, I know Pluto's coming from me and I don't really care about my possessions," but he like kind of subconsciously took all of his nice clothes to the dry cleaner and was like, "Oh," and then his house burned down. And then it was like, "Oh, well, that's a good thing. I still at least have all my nicest clothes. They happen to be at the dry cleaner." And then he found out that like the dry cleaner had been flooded or something. You know what I mean? It was like you try
Oh
to
my
run away or
god.
find it, and not to scare anyone, but I was like, that's just
Yeah.
it was like one of these examples that I heard that very much stuck with me in this sense of kind of like you think you're evading something or you think you're kind of safe on this regard, and then it's like, oh, and actually that too. And that's speaks to the resiliency of the Scorpio archetype. The scorpion itself is, I was in Costa Rica earlier this year and was walking around the cloud forest, this like frog exhibit where there are lots of frogs. And then I probably saw like 10 scorpions just not in cages outside and around because it was kind of a humid, nice environment, dark inside. And I'd never been that close with that many real life scorpions. And I was with a guide and he had his flashlight, and so he was shining on it, and they were all that like really bright neon kind of blacklight reflected green color. And once I'm wearing sandals, of course, and he's like, yeah, we told you to wear closed-toed shoes through this. Like, I'm like picking up my daughter like, wow, okay. And she's a Scorpio as well, so she was very much intrigued. She's like known about the archetype of Scorpio for a long time, but hadn't experienced what such a little creature can evoke so much fear. But also it's because that they're just like, they're so resilient. They can go underground, they can hide, they can pinch, they can puff up, like, change shape and size. They have so many mechanisms for protection. And I think that's such a beautiful trait. Like, I wouldn't necessarily say that there's an evolutionary journey where it starts with Scorpio at the bottom and it rises to the Phoenix. It's just every single one along the way has such power in a different type of way, and to be able to access the flight, the laser vision of the eagle, access that rebirth, quality from nothing of the phoenix, and also access the ability to strike in that Martian kind of way that
Mm.
we were talking about earlier. And they're all superpowers, right? They're all, yeah, Athena, warrior, god, would love to have all of those animals as her totems, I would say. But
Yeah.
yeah, I really love that there's so much to work with as far as the archetypical understanding of this sign, because this time of year, seasonally, at least in the northern hemisphere, does feel like it's a time when we really do need it. The veil is
Mhm.
thin. It's in the pagan wheel of the year, Samhain is the last of the harvest festivals where it's like really over. And there have been a couple other harvest festivals before that, Virgo season, like late Leo season, and then Mabon and like the equinox, and you're kind of getting more and more nutrients and nurturance from the land. And then all of a sudden, like Halloween comes around and it's like, all right, the pumpkins are the last things left. Everything is truly dying at this point. And I've noticed that on my walks lately as I go around my neighborhood. There's like a few little patches of flowers that are jiggling in the wind, and they seem so fragile and so like that their time is up, and everything else is starting to turn gray and brown, and the harvest is at its completion. And that's what the Celtics were celebrating with Samhain, was this ability to make our way into the darkness, into that underworld, into the time of year where ancestors and people from the past need to come in to support us, and we need to build relationships with them for that support. And so I look at this season as like, yeah, it needs that triple totem, just from a human, like an anthropological perspective of looking back through how these harvest festivals and how these types of meaning making came about. But
Mm.
all that being said, like, Yeah, I'm curious about your experience with this season, growing up or now, as far as how it feels in your body to be in this kind of late fall season of the latest harvest. And anything else, yeah, you'd like to say
Yeah.
about your relationship with Halloween or any of that?
Well, I've always loved fall. It's always been my favorite season. I mean, I love the darkness. I thrive in the darkness. I thrive when it starts getting dark earlier. I feel like that's when I really come alive. And something that I've kind of started noticing the last few years is I feel like I do a lot of my dying actually over the summer, and I'm kind of reborn as we move into Scorpio season, and I really do feel that's because I'm here to support others as they're going through their death. So it's kind of like I work on that, and then with the crossing of the threshold with my solar return, then I'm able to be of service to people during this season. Um, Part of working with this Mars energy since moving to Santa Fe has been stepping onto this martial arts path, which is one of the actually where I met you was at the dojo on my birthday last year, which was
Yeah.
kind of funny. And so our teacher Jay talks about how the fall is metal season and it is the season of spiritual warriorship. And I've really been reflecting on the fact that, like, almost my whole chart is in metal season. So I'm a Libra rising, I have Jupiter in Libra, then I have my Sun, Moon, Mercury, and Pluto in Scorpio, and then I have my Venus in Sag, my North Node in Sag. And so I'm a very metallic
Yeah.
person.
Wow.
Um, and so yeah, I just especially this year after having gone through, like, such a deep underworld initiation with Pluto squaring my Scorpio sun and Lilith transiting my whole Scorpio stellium, like, it's been a double at the same time. It's
Boom,
been,
boom, boom.
yeah. Yeah, quite the
Let it be,
underworld
let it boom.
initiation. This is what it means to
Yeah.
have 4 planets in Scorpio.
Mhm.
But because of that, I'm so grateful now for, how these transits have really sharpened my sword, sharpened that edge of discernment, right? Which is really what metal season is about, being able to penetrate to the core of the truth, cutting out what is not essential. And cutting out what is not essential is also a description of the spleen center in human design, which is where we find most of these Scorpio gates, is in the spleen.
Right.
And as I said, I'm a splenic authority, and so this is a big part of my medicine. My ability to come in and work with people and identify what needs to be cut out for your more of your vitality to return to you and come through.
Mm.
Um, and I'm again gonna save the 28. I always want to just get into 28, and I'm
It's
sure
a
we'll get
power,
there
yeah, and we're
soon.
in it. We're in it,
We're
and
in it,
in the fifth
yeah.
line. We're yeah. Yeah, we'll jump there
Yeah,
soon, don't worry.
yeah. Um, but yeah, I think orienting to Scorpio also within metal season, like, and learning more about Taoism, learning more about the 5 element cycle, the 5 element wheel, has helped me understand this more like matured version of Scorpio as well that I think gets really lost in a lot of the, ways that pop astrology ways that we learn about Scorpio through Instagram, etc. But there is this fierce spiritual warrior that is part of the Scorpio archetype, this ability to brave the depths of the unconscious and go down there and, fight some dark stuff, face some
Yeah.
really dark things, the darkest things imaginable. Um, and yeah, do what needs to be done and then emerge from that darkness with more maturity and more awareness um and so I really invite everybody, even if you don't have placements in Scorpio, we all have Scorpio in our chart, wherever you have checking out that house and inviting people to explore, what spiritual warriorship means to you within the context of the house that you find Scorpio in, because we all have this archetype of Scorpio within us. And I love this Mars and Pluto coming together. Like, that is spiritual warriorship.
Yeah.
And warriorship requires sacrifice, right? And that's
Uh-huh.
what Pluto's asking for, is that sacrifice. Um,
Yeah, I loved our teacher Jay the other day was talking about sacrifice in the context of a qigong class, and it was about, I mean, sacrifice, the root of that word is sacred. And so it's this connection to the sacred. It's doing something that's hard because you are connecting to something that means a lot. And it's different from obligation. And it's different from how we think of sacrifice, in a lot of terms, like, giving too much of yourself away. But I love that it is doing something that's difficult, being a warrior, doing, getting up every day and running those stairs and lifting those weights and sharpening that sword and doing the actual maintenance type things that need to happen, because you're seeing the bigger picture, right? Not just of what's above, but also what's below, and how it takes both, as above, so below. And so it's honing that skill and that warriorship to go to the underworld in a way that maybe
mhm.
Aries Mars is more above ground, and with the shiny helmet, and it's not covered in dark composted soil, but it takes both,
Yeah.
right? It's like you're definitely needing to prepare. Another thing that Jay's said that stood out to me, about the season of metal, is that, that discernment and shedding and getting rid of things. And so there's a snake shedding its skin, but there's also, that you're standing outside of a cave because winter is coming, and you got to go inside the cave, and you have to decide what it is that you're bringing in with you, who it is that you're bringing in with you, what kind of qualities that you want to help you through winter. Because during the season of life, from Aries through Virgo season and into Libra season a bit, it's about that relationship with what's alive and what's blossoming and what's fruiting and what's creating above ground. And so we can have more on our plate. We literally
Mhm.
should, right? Otherwise it'll rot. You want to, in the peak of summer, or on the opposite side of the year, Beltane is the opposite cross quarter day from Samhain. And you think of May Day, and it's about like weaving all of the abundant, beautiful ribbons together in this way that's like everything is blossoming, everything is kind of effortlessly coming together. And then you reach the cross
Mhm.
quarter day between the, winter equinox or the winter solstice and the fall equinox. And it's just a very different, opposite and equal mentality that requires, that ferocity of cutting things away, and that bravery to embrace, like, what we have stored up, and that kind of thing. And so I think that, bringing metal into the picture as that elemental wisdom is something that has been so powerful for me as I look at, with the cycles of time mandala, which you've seen before. I think I started doing this project, or had the idea, as I was studying Qigong, and learning about that whooshing 5 element cycle, and being like, wait a second. So if that's metal, but it's fixed water, in the zodiac, and at first it was so
Mhm.
intellectual. It was like, how do all of these different elements come together? But now I look at it as all just like beautiful, fixed water makes sense. Like the fire of Mars makes sense. So does,
Totally.
the metal of the season. And so it's kind of like tapping into all of the different elements through these different lineages and different perspectives, has made it really a comprehensive way, I think, to see each season
Mhm.
holds. But I love that you brought up the
Yeah.
middle, because it's been a powerful way to think about, not just getting depressed and sad that the darkness is coming, but being like, what can I do? How can I embrace what's coming with my own internal willpower?
And a way to look really, because with that fixed water, right? Like, we can get really stuck in that emotional process. And so just remembering that metal is there too to help us cut through some of that, so we don't get stuck down there. So I think this is like a really common thing with Scorpios is we can just get stuck in the underworld because we're
Yeah.
comfortable down there. We know that world. It's very easy to, what's the word? Not ruminate, but like dwell. Like just
Mhm.
dwell in those kind of like toxic waters. And so I always like see the image of like the sword emerging from this like black water and
Mm.
coming through and like, yeah, releasing, cutting away what needs to be cut away so we can then like begin that ascent. Um,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, and I love and also something that has risen to the top as an image as you've been speaking has been that's the metal is not only the sword, but the yin form of metal is the wing. And so we have
Oh, I
eagle
didn't
and
know
phoenix
that.
in here. Yeah, so it's a similar slicing
Cool.
energy as the sword, but it's in a more like sword is yang, the wing is yin, and so it's bringing in this ascension. I mean, the what do wings do but ascend a body up into the air, and so it's and also create wind and create ripples in water and yeah, kind of create that movement in a place that might otherwise feel stagnant. So, yeah,
Oh, I
that's
love
cool.
that.
Yeah. Wow. Such good stuff. So juicy.
So rich. Yeah.
How do you feel about Halloween, or do you celebrate Samhain or Halloween or anything surrounding this holiday? How do you feel about it?
Well, I have been invited to a Dia de los Muertos gathering this year, and I'm really excited to experience a ceremonial gathering around this time. I don't think I've had people in my community previously who are kind of orienting to this holiday beyond like, getting dressed up and all of that. Um so yeah, I feel like this year will be my first kind of more ceremonial experience of Samhain. I did spend time in Oaxaca last summer, and I feel really called to spend Dia de los Muertos down there at some point and experience all of their rituals and ceremonies around this time of year. But yeah, growing up, I loved Halloween so much. I love dressing up. But in recent years, yeah, I've just been in so much transition. I haven't I haven't had opportunities haven't really come in, so I'm really excited to experience this ceremony this year.
Oh, beautiful. That'll be wonderful. Dia de Muertos is my absolute favorite, and I've been lucky enough to live in cities that have big celebrations. I lived in New Orleans for a while, and they do a huge procession there where people are very into it and go and put a lot of candles into the Mississippi River, and it's just I think when I moved there when I was 18 and discovered this, I was like, "Wow, that is potent." And growing up, I went to some Dia de los Muertos parties that my parents' friend would have in Santa Fe that were the hugest altar, like huge room size altars with
Wow.
so many pictures of loved ones and quotes and flowers and food, and it was just so beautiful to see that that's
Hmm.
what this is about as the veil is thin, is that reverence for what's come before and what comes after, and then I lived in San Francisco, and they have a huge in the Mission District there's a massive Day of the Dead parade that everyone gets really into, and so it's just yeah, having that experience of this time of year in that reverent way that's not just tricks and treats and a lot of, spirit Halloween, like, plastic
Yeah.
costumes and things like that.
Yeah.
Uh, I was telling somebody the other day that, I went to India a while back and, probably, like, 10 years ago, and I remember them it was on Halloween, and I remember them asking me, like, the history and the meaning behind this holiday, and at that point, I didn't even really I was kind of on the spot, and I couldn't really think much besides of the fact I was like, "Oh, it celebrates, like, costume, you dress up," and I was just kinda saying what happens because that's what they knew, and so I was reaffirming what they were saying to me, like, "Oh, yeah, I hear you dress up and get candy." I was like, "Yeah, that's it." And then later on, and I was kind of like, "That's just so not as rich as a lot of, the Indian holidays that there's so many of, and they're all connected to a goddess or something ancient," and I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, this isn't," but the more I started to think about it, I'm like, "Oh, it very much is connected in so many cultures to a very profound ritual celebration that has happened across the world during this time." And I think that sometimes the brightness and the flashiness or like the sheer horror of it can kind of get in the way of that reverent possibility of connection and relationality. But I'm not a hater.
Totally.
I like all sides of it myself. Like, whatever it comes through is fine. But it is interesting how there are many different ways to partake
Totally.
in this time of year. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
I was in Spirit Halloween yesterday because I needed some vampire fangs, and it was just like, wow, this is a huge industry.
Yeah,
But
it's crazy. They
yeah.
pop these stores up every year. Yeah, dishing out
Mhm.
plastic
Yeah.
costumes.
Yep.
It's wild.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I hope you have a beautiful time at your ceremony,
Thank
and,
you.
I think before we get too much further into this, Miss Human Design, let's jump into the gate. Let's
Yeah.
talk about, yeah, kind of an overview, and you can talk as much about Gate 28 as you want. I think that's a really important one. Let's get into it. But yeah, we kind of we started off in Gate 50 at the cusp between that's the end of Libra season and the beginning of Scorpio season. That's the gate of the
Mhm.
cauldron, the gate of equilibrium, kind of the gene keys there goes from corruption to equilibrium to harmony. And so those are very Libran words in my mind, harmony and equilibrium. And so that's an interesting one that it spans Libra to Scorpio season. So maybe we could start there. This was last week,
Yeah.
and then work our way through all the 6 gates that exist within Scorpio season.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah,
I know you just
absolutely.
recorded a podcast specifically about 50, which I loved, with Daje, the story doula, and that was
Yeah.
beautiful insights into Gate 50, so
Well,
anything that comes.
what you were just sharing about, reverence of what and who has come before, I feel like that's really the medicine of Gate 50. So Gate 50 in human design is the gate of values. And it is our connection to our ancestral values, the values of our family and our lineage. And it's honoring the values that have kept us safe in the past. And I think offers us an invitation to reflect on which of those values still resonate with us, and feel applicable to the day and age that we're living in now, and our own personal process of differentiation, individuation from our family line, and what, needs to be buried in Scorpio season, which of those values don't actually resonate with who we're being asked to become. Um, and yeah, Gate 50 spans, it starts off in Libra season, ends in Scorpio season. The Gene Keys perspective absolutely feels like just kind of quintessential, what you would think of for Libra. And then yeah, I said in the in the episode, Gate 50 drops us off in the underworld, and brings us into Gate 28. But with 50, the cauldron, as it's called in the I Ching, um, that vessel for what it's like offering us the vessel for the alchemy that then gets to actually take place during Scorpio season. So it's kind of like setting the stage for Scorpio season is how it feels for me. But I feel that Libra energy in there really strongly as well. And then boom, right after 50, dropping us off in 28, which is about life and death. And so every gate in the spleen in human design, which is where we find both gate 50 and gate 28, and some of the additional Scorpio gates, which we'll get into. But every gate in the spleen is associated with a fear. And so the fear associated with gate 28 is the fear of death. And so this really is this question of, why am I alive? What is the purpose for being here? What is the meaning behind all of this? Why did I incarnate into this human form? Um and what needs to die in order for me to live? That's really like the central question for me when we're talking about 28. In the Gene Keys, Richard Rudd speaks about 28 starting with the shadow of purposelessness. And so this feeling of like, yeah, what is the purpose to all of this suffering that we're experiencing here on earth in this incarnated form? And it moves to the gift of totality, which is about committing yourself totally to every present moment. It's like committing to life, committing to being alive, like surrendering totally to the present moment and realizing that that's actually where your purpose lives. It doesn't live in this far off future. It lives here now. 28 is an individual gate. In the human design chart, there's individual circuitry, collective circuitry, and tribal circuitry. And I won't get too far into that. That's a conversation for another day. But yeah, there is this sense with individuality where it only lives now. It's like it's like in the present moment. And I love the gift of 28, or yeah, the gift of 28, the gift of totality so much. There's a line in the Gene Keys where Richard talks about committing yourself totally to whatever role you're currently playing out in your life. And even if that role is the villain, as long as you like commit totally to playing out that role, you are living your purpose. So many great quotes from that one. I almost want to open up my book and read some of them.
You're welcome
But
to. I mean, we're in it right now.
he,
It's currently, as we're recording, it's Wednesday, October 29th, and this gate will be the sun will be transiting through this gate until Halloween, when it'll switch to gate 44, which is also very interesting. The gate of alertness for Halloween time. But yeah,
yeah,
I'd love to hear what you've highlighted it for 28.
yeah. To live in the continual acceptance of death means to live with a continual threat of the unexpected. So that kind of brings us back to this my incarnation cross, which if you have your sun in gate 28, 27, 31, or 41, then and you're a right angle cross, then that's part of your part of your cross. But hold on, let me yeah. Oh, yeah. This is the one. In 28, the title of the chapter is Embracing the Dark Side. And so he talks a lot about demons and entities and all of the spooky the spooky stuff that we associate with Scorpio season, but this one there is a deep sense of thrill that comes as you progressively face your inner demons. Your demons, as we have learned, are actually your angels in disguise. Every situation in your life is devised as a form of initiation that allows you to either remain as you are or evolve. When life is lived in this intuitive way, life shows you that it has an underlying purpose in everything that it brings you. Yeah, there's so many things I could say, but in some gift of totality, your purpose is right here. So anytime that you're feeling that shadow of purposelessness come in, inviting you to identify the roles that life is asking you to play right now. I think that's the other thing. So in human design, gate 28 is the gate of the game player. It remembers, it knows that we're here to play a game, the game of life. It's here to master the game of life. Oh my God. I love that. So Allison's showing her cards that she created, and she put a little gamer console. What is that?
I was torn. I was
Gamer
like, do I
console.
do a chessboard? That's like a video game console. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like the game
Yeah.
player. Yeah. Like you have to trust that you're fully playing the game, that you can't just step outside of the game of life, right? And
Mhm.
otherwise there will be that purposelessness that arises.
Yeah.
But when you're fully in
Yeah.
it, it allows you to achieve, like just that richness and that fullness. Yeah. What you said
Yeah.
reminds me of that Jung quote that says, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Because I think that there's a lot of like shadow work that can be attributed to Scorpio
Yep.
season. That with the Pluto and with the kind of unconscious underground Mars, that it can be a time to really start to look at at some things that might have otherwise been hidden, kind of like you hinted at earlier. And I think that sometimes when we do that, it's like, with both the cauldron, this gate 50 and the gate of the game player, sometimes it's kind of like when you start to approach the darkness in a way that's like merging, like you mentioned. Like I think about, in Libra season, the leaves have fallen to the ground and they're just kind of sitting there, but they haven't fully started to decompose and become the soil yet. But Scorpio season is when it's like the plants themselves are actually starting to break down and become and merge with the everythingness that has come before them, which is what the soil is made up of, is all the past, all the ancestors of past leaves and plants and all of that. And so thinking about it in that way of like this compost season, it can be scary to go from like, I'm a leaf, to being like, oh no, I'm not just a leaf. I'm a leaf and I'm all of these ancestral traumas and ancestral joys as well. And I am a mix of what came before and what will come after, as we said. But so both the cauldron can make you tempted to like, oh, I just want to tip that all out and start a new brew in there. Like I don't want to like reach
Mhm.
this fine equilibrium by just like gently stirring it or like letting it boil over and putting new ingredients. It's more, for me at least, having Saturn and Pluto in 50, it's like I just want to like pour that thing all the way out, be like, let me start fresh. But that's like not what it's about. And the game player, the game player, I think of it as like a video game where it's kind of like, I just want to stop. I'm going to pause the game. I'm going to like, I'm not playing this game anymore. And then with life
Mhm.
and with the season we're in, you cannot just decide that. And so that's where I think the fear can double down, because it's like you're not only just seeing your fears be displayed, um, death, for example, the fear of responsibility for gate 50, and they're not only being reflected back to you, but you also have to like work with them. You also have
Mhm.
to stay in them. And so sometimes I think
Mhm.
that extra layer on top of the fear of knowing that like it's not just easily, you can't easily just like go elsewhere. I think that's where both 50 and 28 for me will feel very powerful in that way of just like calling you into that maturity, like you mentioned earlier, and that right relationship of like, okay, this is time to grow up a bit,
Yeah.
like in the medicine wheel,
And
we're in
that
the season of like adulthood into elderhood during this season. It's kind of like
Oh,
turning
interesting.
from the west to the north during Scorpio season. And so it's like
Mhm.
that's where we're at, is like true adulthood of meeting yourself where you're actually at. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that reminds me of what, Jay said in our Yin Warriorship immersion for the autumn season. She asked the question, "Have you taken personal responsibility for your life, for your joys and your sorrows?" And that's really what, to me, like, this is part of what shadow work is. It's about integrating us back into wholeness. There's a beautiful quote here on the gift of totality from Richard Rudd. The gift of totality means to embrace the whole of your nature and the whole of life, the pleasure and the pain. To be total in this sense of this gift also means to live without allowing your mind to dictate your life. This is life lived for the moment, in the full knowledge that life purpose can only be found in the present moment rather than in the distant future. Um, and that is the assignment, right, for this time of year. It's a process of integration, of surrender, of going back, yeah, surrendering to the yin field, allowing those blooms from spring that were so beautiful at one point in time and are now going through this beautiful decomposition process and returning back to wholeness, to oneness with the earth. Um and if we don't allow ourselves to be composted, or at least the parts of ourselves that are needing to be composted, then we won't have any fertile soil to grow whatever is wanting to grow through us, emerge through us next spring. And so, letting go is, yeah, it's a hard thing for humans, right? The mind doesn't want to let go. It wants to cling to these things. But I try to always like remind people. There's a beautiful quote, I think, from Dr. Clarissa Pinkola Estes, where she says, I'm loosely paraphrasing, like, death is always in the process of incubating new life.
Mm.
And
Yes.
we tend to have this idea that with death there's something final, but it's really not. It's just a transformation. It is just life-changing form.
Yeah.
Um, and anyways, I could go on with that for a long time, but to wrap up 28, the city of 28 is the gift of immortality. And I love this because this really is speaking to this aspect of us that never dies. And I think once we're able to confront our fears, we realize that there is that thing in us that doesn't actually change. And so when we allow ourselves to like surrender to the death process for all of these changing parts of self, we also cultivate a deeper relationship with that aspect of us that is immortal, that lives on and knows that like this is, just the death of this body and I'm going to have another experience in another body. And yeah, he talks about all sorts of other mystical stuff about humans potentially becoming immortal in a future timeline and all of that, but we won't get into
Yeah.
that today.
I
Um,
know. Immortality there is so poignant based on what we just talked about. It's like you're losing. I think when you brought up surrender earlier in our conversation, that really that word has been so on the tip of my tongue for months and months and the whole year and probably before. But it's something that, the North Node is in Pisces right now, which is kind of more about surrendering to the infinite soup and letting go of the perfectionism and individualism of the Virgo, with South Node being in Virgo. So I started thinking about it during the eclipse season of Virgo and Pisces, of surrender just coming. And it was like, what is surrender? Does it mean you disappear? Like, because sometimes when you surrender, you either collapse or you just feel like you're turning into vapor. But the idea here that surrender is actually becoming a part of everythingness. It's like hard to grasp, I think. It's hard to grok sometimes in our bodies because we are
mhm.
individual. We live in an individual culture and we are individualized beings, as humans.
Yeah.
We have edges, we have skin. But when you really start to get into that spiritual realm, that, Scorpionic kind of eighth house is always associated with that spiritual realm, with the occult, as it were, or with esoteric practices, as you mentioned. And I think for me it feels so grounding to know that, like, I might be changing form. I might not be this individualized being. I might never be that same leaf again in any further incarnation. I probably won't be, but I'll be something else and I'll feed beyond myself with becoming part of the everythingness. And it's such a grounding for me way to think about surrender, and make it not feel so much like you're dissolving into thin air, but you're actually dissolving into
Mhm.
the infinite field of everything. So just had to mention that because it really hit me.
Yeah. And this is why like we have to surrender totally to this present moment. We're never going to experience this moment again. That's where life is. Um And I feel like I've said that so many times, but we're all so focused on like, I'll be happy when, like in the future and I have my business going and whatever. And like life is only ever here now. And that's really what 28 is trying to connect us with is we could die at any moment. So you better live the fuck out of this moment because you're never going to get it again.
Yeah. Amen.
Should we move
Let's
on to
move on to
44?
44. Yeah, 44
Yeah.
is, starting on Halloween
Oh,
31st and going through November 3rd.
yes.
So tell me about 44. I know as you said it was your favorite gene key the other day.
It is my favorite gene
Uh-huh.
key. It is my moon placement. 44 in human design is called the gate of actually, what is the
Alertness.
gate name? Alertness, that's right. Yeah, I don't really resonate too much with that language, but in the I Ching it's called coming to meet, and I think that's a really great way to orient to this frequency because it is very much about what we come to meet in our life. The karmic relationships, the title of the chapter in the Gene Keys is Karmic Relationships, the karmic relationships that we come to meet in our life to learn and hopefully integrate the lessons that these different characters in our life are coming in to teach us. In the Gene Keys, it moves from the shadow of interference to the gift of teamwork to the city of synarchy. And this whole concept of synarchy is like my continual fascination. It feels so closely related to my life purpose, my reason for being here. Um, and so I'll start off with exploring it a little bit more from the shadow frequency, though, which is really, really interesting. It might be a little hard for me to kind of wrap my words around it because it is like really speaking to the illusion at large, to this kind of like artificial matrix that is placed upon humanity and the earth that creates an interference in our natural way of being. And so 44 is it's a net, like he talks about Indra's net in gate 44. And so the way that I kind of orient to this, and this is just like my own personal experience, is like we have these experiences of these people coming in and kind of trying to interfere or distort our frequency, and and it's almost like a sword sharpening process, going back to that like metallic um energy of this season, and through this process of moving through these karmic relationships, we sharpen our sword, we learn more about who we really are, what our frequency actually is, through experiencing relationships that really show us what we're not. Um
Wow.
and yeah, karma.
Yeah.
Right? I
Whew.
mean, we live in this plane of duality. And so it's very easy to be yourself around people who are also being themselves and also just see who you are. Um, Only do you really appreciate like who you really are, the purest expression of your frequency, once you've experienced distortion.
Uh-huh.
And so that's really how I would describe what he means by interference. Is it is distortion coming into your life through karmic relationships and seeing how you handle that, you know? And in the shadow, he talks about how, if you don't learn the lesson that this person in your life, this karmic relationship came into your life to teach you, then that same lesson will come back in another person over and over and over again, and until you start tracking and seeing like, oh, different person, same story. It's the same story.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
and yeah. So I'll leave it there because again, with all these, I could just go on forever. But uh,
I love that though. I
moving
mean,
on.
yeah, let's talk about about synarchy. That word I think is so interesting as kind
Hmm.
of the higher frequency of, because when you think about interference, like that could lead to a lot of distrust, right? Where you just kind of, I think that's one of the repressive or reactive nature is just like you stop trusting anyone because someone hurt you once, right? But what Scorpio season is all about is intimacy. I think as we've seen in all of these gates so far is like, Taurus season across the wheel is about kind of like coming to know what is yours, like mine. It's like the sign of mine. Aries is me, Taurus is mine. But then you go across the wheel and it's like, what is ours? Like you're going into this kind of like, it's not just about you anymore once you reach Scorpio season. And so like the deep intimacy here, I think, yeah, it would be easy to get stuck here at this middle gate of Scorpio season of just being like, if all these, things are coming to meet me that are supposed to teach me a lesson. And that could be ghouls and goblins and ghosts on on Halloween,
Yeah.
Dia de Muertos too, because that's the gate of that season of those holidays. It's every year, it's
Hmm.
within that. And so you are coming to meet ancestors. You are coming to meet spirits. You are coming to meet the dead. You are coming to meet people from your past. The haunting of this gate, I think, is so real. But I'm curious because we are
Totally.
going into that probably right as we release this episode. Yeah, I'd be curious about like how can we work with this in a teamwork, or teamwork is the gift.
Yeah. Well, this is the gift. Once we start really like identifying the patterns that these different karmic relationships are trying to show us, and integrating that part of our shadow, right? Because ultimately that's what these karmic relationships are trying to do. They're an externalization of an aspect of us that we are not seeing and loving and integrating and saying you're welcome here too. Um, and so once we, begin this process of identifying the patterns, which again, I keep saying that, and that 44 is about pattern recognition. That is this intuitive ability to see patterns. So once we start
Mhm.
identifying those patterns, learning those lessons, integrating those lessons, we start attracting in more of our soul family. I say with 44, it's like from karmic relationships to dharmic relationships. Then it's like the people who we really are here to work with and create and build with in our life start coming into our life. And the way that Richard talks about it as well is like people, once go through this process and learn the lessons you need to learn, people whose vibration or frequency is a little bit higher than yours, they start coming into your field, and then you have this ability to kind of co-regulate at that higher frequency, and that keeps happening. And that's really the way that is this path to synarchy through the gift of teamwork, is this ability to kind of harmonize with others in our field. And so
Mhm.
synarchy is a model of collective leadership, and the way that Richard describes it is through the beehive. The beehive is an example of a synarchical community. And in synarchy, there is not necessarily one hierarchical leader at the top shouting out orders for, you need to do this, you need to do this. There's actually a frequency that pervades the space that is this frequency that's getting everybody to do what they need to do to create whatever is trying to be created. And so yeah, the way you should just read the 44th Gene Key if you have the book, because it's so beautiful. The city of this is so beautiful. But the way that I, like in layman's terms, I guess, to talk about synarchy, to me, it's like when everybody is playing their role, nothing more, nothing less.
Mhm.
And so, I'm playing my role. I'm in my frequency. I'm not trying to be any more than my frequency or any less. I am doing exactly what is being called of me. And the process of even discerning what that is a lifelong process, right? Like, I'm not saying that anybody has figured this out, but um, once I'm owning what's mine to own and being who I came here to be, and I'm surrounded by others who are doing that, we're naturally just co creating something that's not led
Mhm.
from the mind. It's not leadership from a mental place. It's really leadership from a heart place.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, to me, this concept is just endlessly fascinating because I think, we are living in a time where we're moving away from hierarchy, away from leaders at the top, and moving into a cycle where we're all being asked to become the leaders of our own life. And when we're all leading our own life from our heart, from within, from our inner authority, and we get together with other people who are doing that, that's when like that then like secret magical energy of synarchy just kind of like starts to take over the room, and we're all like co-creating this beautiful tapestry.
Yeah.
Um
What a dream.
so
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do feel
No,
like we're on that.
right?
Yeah, I feel like so many of these paradigm shifts that I've been writing about and referencing, and I'm starting this series on, it's so many of them, and I won't get into them all now, but like from many different cultural influences and in human design, astrology, the yugas, like all of these different cycles, larger cycles are pointing to synarchy being the future, being a place where we own our sovereignty and our autonomy, and we're not wishing that we were. I keep talking about leaves, but I'm not like wishing I was that leaf over there. I am me.
Yeah,
I am the components of myself breaking down, and through that I
totally.
can form a mycelial web, or that Indira's net. And the card that I made for this, which is interesting, I didn't really think about it, but what you were saying, it's a bunch of humans on a tree, and that could be a bunch of humans, if you flip it upside down, on a root system where it's like they have their
Cool.
individual sovereignty, but they are tied together through this synarchical network. And so I love that, going
Mhm.
into this, spooky season, as it's called, or this veil is thin time. I think having that as a North Star feels super valuable right now. So thank you for elaborating
Yeah.
on that.
And
Yeah.
connecting that back to, that like synarchy, this is the 8th house, right? This is like that which can only be co-created. We can't create it on our own. It's like people coming together to create something larger than ourselves, larger than our individual impact out in the world. And weaving, and last note on this, we have to surrender to synarchy by surrendering to our role and
Yes.
playing our role, nothing more, nothing less, like that then we're caught by synarchy. Then we can
Oh my god.
fall into the flow of life. We can
Yes.
resume our place as part of nature, not separate from it. This illusion that we're separate from it, that is the interference that he's speaking about in the shadow.
Mm, so true. That is so, not only for this season, but just for the cultural, socio-political season that we're currently in. I think one thing that so many people are feeling right now is that, like, I can't do enough. I can't do enough. It's like I hear that all the time. Like, and then what's the point? It's that kind of like that collapse surrender dichotomy where it's like I can't do everything. I'm just one person. I don't even know where to start. So then it's just like, whoosh, I can't get out of bed, and so like leaning into this at this during this season of entering the dark season of the year, but also just going through what we're going through on a massive global level with all of the changes that are currently happening. It's like remembering that, yeah, staying in your lane and connecting with other people, and just small micro steps towards doing both of those things, like building the padding of your own
Mhm.
sovereignty and reaching out across the aisle or across to a friend at the same time. And just, yeah, it feels super important. So I see why it's your favorite. That makes a lot of sense. It's
Yeah.
a deep one. Yeah. Yeah. And then after 44, we move into gate 1, the very beginning of the entire
Yes.
64 hexagrams, the gate of self-expression or creativity. And that's such an interesting one in here, because it's been all about merging and intimacy and stirring the cauldron and playing the game fully. And now here we are as like self-expression. I'm
Mhm.
curious what your thoughts are as far as like that in the arc of Scorpio gates. Yeah.
Well, to me, it is the spark of creation that emerges from the yin, from darkness. So the first hexagram is the only hexagram in all 64 that is all yang lines. So it is the most masculine of the masculine, the most yang of the yang. It is the creative spark that is individuation, is emerging from the field of yin, the field of oneness, to differentiate and say I am, in a sense. I know it's not Aries, but it's it is that. Um and I also was kind of thinking about this yesterday, how it is kind of paradoxical that we find one in the depths of Scorpio season and not like Aries or something like that, or Taurus.
Mm. Right.
We find the opposite of this too, um in Taurus season, which is all yin lines.
Mhm.
And
Receptivity.
so,
Yeah.
receptivity.
Yeah.
And so 2 being the yin of the yin, 1 being the yang of the yang. Um, but yang emerging from the yin field, and it actually makes sense. So when you think about it, there's no other place that like pure expression of light can emerge from other than darkness. And so this is, the sprout that sprouts from the darkness of the earth to then eventually flower into something beautiful, next season, right? Where maybe it'll become a flower 6 months later, but this is just that first breaking through of light from darkness.
Mm.
Um it literally is the creative principle. The gate of self-expression, this 1-8 channel, they call it the channel of a creative role model. It's very artistic, it's very creative. It has that yang force to create life, to create beauty. Um,
Mm.
I
I love it.
think in the gene keys, it starts with entropy. Trying to remember it moves from the shadow of entropy to the gift of freshness to the city of beauty. Um, and I don't, to me, this one is actually very simple. It's just like, it's just that it's the light that emerges from darkness.
Yeah.
And a
Yeah.
reminder of once we surrender to this process that's unfolding, starting in 50, moving through 28, moving through 44, if we've done the work, if we've surrendered to the darkness, then there is this spark that we can only see in the darkness. This is like another really, I don't know, big part of my Scorpio ethos is, we're able to truly understand light in the context of darkness. When we're
Right.
in in the daytime world, whatever this world is of here, um, there's a lot of distraction, you know? There's a lot of light. But that again, that like purification is not quite the right word, but it's that metallic energy again that's like I get the visual of like a diamond being formed under pressure and heat. Like
Uh-huh.
once we've like done that work in the cauldron and then moved through the process of facing our fear of death and moving through the 44 and facing like how these shadows show up through our relationships in life, whereas like in 28 it's more of like our individual journey, 44 is more of our interpersonal journey with the shadow. Once we've done that work and allowed ourselves to be forged by fire and pressure, then the truth of who we are, that diamond self, can emerge and can be seen.
Yes.
Um,
It evokes so many different, things within literature, like it's always darkest before the dawn, kind of cliches, truisms like that. Or one of my favorite poems is a poem by Wendell Berry that I think of a lot during this type of year, which is, do you know this one? It's to go in the dark with the light is to know the light, to know dark, go without sight. And I think it's
mm,
and trust that the dark too blooms and sings and is carried by dark feet and dark wings. So you go fully,
oh,
totality, like all the way into the dark without a light, and then the light. Yeah, like you said, that spark can emerge in its true, in its ultimate truth, that's not influenced by other light. It's like you're going all the way to the depths all the way. And what's interesting for me with this is that you mentioned, 50, 28, 44. Those are all splenic gates, right? Think I'm right.
mhm.
Yeah, and then before
Yep.
that, all of the gates of Libra season, except the very first one, are splenic. So there's like 8 splenic gates in a row. So we've been in spleen season and
Mhm.
like deep in just like, and again, that's all about kind of our like primal response to our, it's like a very animalistic almost response that's not mental at all. It's not heart centered. It's about that like immediate reaction in our bodies of like our animal bodies of what is right, what's wrong,
Mhm.
what's scary. And so we've gone through weeks and weeks of spleen, and then we hit one, and it's the G center, it's the heart, it's like identity.
Mhm.
So to come out of like deep splenic work and then bing, it's like amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And the G center in human design is theorized to be a black hole. It is like what connects us to oneness, like to the yin field. And so it's like from the depths of the G center, the depths of the spiritual heart, that creative pulse, that creative principle emerges. Um
Mm. Mm.
and I feel like there's a lot of um kind of like similar energy around like how that energy comes forward with 1 and then the next gate 43, which is the gate of insight in human design, and that's in the ajna.
Wow.
And Scorpio is absolutely associated with psychic abilities. And 43 is absolutely a psychic gate. It doesn't know how it knows, it just knows. It's also part of the individual circuitry, and these individual insights really emerge also from this kind of yin field, from this field of darkness. And it's not really here to explain itself through logic or reason. It's just here to provide these like deeply psychic hits, which is subtly different than the intuition of the spleen, right? The spleen is not only the home of our primal instincts, like our animal bodies, but also our intuition.
Right.
And there's and that has its own, flavor of psychicness in a sense, you could say. But
Mhm.
43 up in the ajna is that, that's the third eye. And so those insights coming through, I have both my Plutos in 43. In the gene keys, it moves from the shadow of deafness to the gift of insight to the city of epiphany. Um, and this one is associated with the inner ear too, which I feel like is interesting to bring in, because also like oftentimes with this gift, it's like you just hear things and you don't know where they came from. But that's kind of part of this mechanism of these psychic hits that we receive. And this one kind of has this tendency to kind of like blurt out the insight in the moment. And in human
It's called
design, they call
jamming
it the
up
like, yeah,
genius
go
to
ahead.
freak. Genius to
Yeah,
freak
the
is that's
genius to freak
43's thing.
channel. So Ra Uru, who the founder of human design, had this channel. And so if you're meant to receive this information, then you will perceive this person as being a genius or being psychic. And if you're not meant to receive that information, then you'll think that they're a freak. And this is one of the death gates in human design. There are 3 death gates. Gate 38, actually, which connects to 28.
Mhm.
2838 is one of the deaf channels, 43, and then 3955 on the other side, mirroring the 2838 is the 3955. So all of those channels are called the deaf gates, and or deaf channels. And what that essentially means is that you are deaf to frequencies that you're not here to be influenced by. So the individual really is here to bring in something new. It's not really here to be influenced by the collective and by the tribe. And so this deafness is actually a protective mechanism to protect you from being those individual insights from being influenced. I have all 3 of these deaf gates.
Do you? Wow. I was so
So
curious about these. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I have all 3 of these, and I've had the experience, like, even with human design teachers. I was working with a human design teacher, and for a while, I was, like, taking in so much information, and then one day I just went deaf, and I literally couldn't hear him. Um, and it just kind of sounded like distortion or, like, static, and I'm like, "Okay, great," or I literally just will stop listening. I went to was with 2 projector friends yesterday, and another one has all 3 deaf gates, and I'll even be talking to her in mid-sentence. I can just tell that she just stopped listening. And I'm like, "Okay." And I don't take it personally. I'm like, "Okay, like, she's just literally not meant to hear this." doesn't care.
Wow. Oh my
Um,
gosh.
yeah, so that's a fun
How helpful
one.
to know that about yourself. How helpful to, like, have that insight. My daughter is Gate 43 Sun, and but when I found when I when I first read Deafness Was the Shadow, I was like I just started cracking up because I was like, "Oh, yeah." Like, she will turn and she won't it's not that she's just ignoring me, but she won't be hearing it, and as a parent to a child with that, it's like, wow.
Right.
And it's been so helpful to know that because I'm like, "Okay."
Exactly.
And she's so insightful and so has so many epiphanies and so many ideas all the time just coming through. She has the full channel, the Genius to Freak, so she's definitely assimilating those into the world all the time. But I think there was a frustration for me for a long time of just like, you're not listening to me, like this is really important. And the more I know, I'm just like, okay, this isn't the time or this isn't the way to communicate it. And her energy protection does feel important, as her mother. I'm like, yeah, don't be taking in things from all kinds of different people. If you don't
Totally.
have to, if you know your lane, you know what you're supposed to be doing. And I think that's so beautiful, but deafness can sound like, "Oh god, that's like," because we're all about communication and sharing and.
Right.
But I love that you bring that to the table as, like, it's just not meant to be received at that moment or yeah.
And relating it back to like 44, for example, now that I know this about myself, I can start to track like, oh, if there's somebody that I'm like feeling really deaf to, that's information for me that that person's probably like, I'm probably not supposed to be around that person
Mm.
because they're
Mhm.
negatively trying to, or not trying to, but they are interfering with my individual process. And that's one of the jokes or one of the sayings with individual circuitry is it's really not here to be interfered with. There's actually a mutative process that's underway that we can't understand. Um and we need to just allow that mutative evolutionary process to unfold. Because
Mhm.
that's the whole purpose of that, right? Not to conform.
Yes.
Um
Right. Right.
yeah.
I think of Scorpio as intimacy all the time. I'm just like 8th house Scorpio, intimacy, those words are kind of linked for me. And sometimes that can feel like, yeah, the merging or the like being overly reliant on relationality. But I love that so many of these gates are pointing to intimacy with self, like at the deepest
Yeah.
possible level. Going to your depths and then finding your creative insights and like, yeah, like learning from others, being in relationship with others, but you're not fully where it's not Pisces season yet where we're all part of the same primordial soup. It's like still breaking down. So there still is this element of defining like what is my individuality that's not surface level. It's not like how I look, it's not how I present, but it's like what is the essence of my individuality that even as I'm broken down still stays intact. So that feels like all of these have really given me a new insight into that process. Yeah.
Yeah. And like overall, when you look at the gates of Scorpio season, 44 is tribal, and then the very end of 50, which is, just the very end of 50 is in Scorpio, which is also tribal, but everything else is individual.
Mhm.
And I think the thing to really remember, the shadow of the eighth house is codependence and enmeshment, but um, real union is only possible through that wholeness and that intactness of the individual frequency. And I think
Yeah.
that's like the dojo of Scorpio. That's what spiritual warriorship is actually about, is like get like honing your own frequency so you
Mhm.
can surrender to union with the other. Um
Yes. Yes.
and bringing
Interdependence,
us
not codependence. Yes, and the final
yes.
gate. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And bringing us, yeah, to the final gate, gate 14, which again is also an individual gate. In the gene keys, this moves from the shadow of compromise to the gift of competence to the city of bounteousness. And in the I Ching, this one is called possession in great measure. The human design calls it the gate of power skills, which is again not really one of my favorite like descriptions of it. But I actually recently learned, and you probably already know this, but in the I Ching with 14, they talk about like a wagon that's really full. It's like full of like coins or just like valuable things, and it's like overflowing. Possession in great measure. There is a lot of energy, sacral energy. This gate is found in the sacral. It's the one gate that we've spoken about today that's found in the sacral. So that sacral resource, the vital life force, there's an abundance of it in this gate. And the thing that I think is really interesting to note is that the 14 is connecting to the 2 in that channel. And so the 2 is the yin of the yin. And so to me, this is the composting of our excess abundance that we might have from harvest season back
Huh.
to the soil of the earth, back to the yin, and
Mm.
allowing that process of, composting and transformation to happen. Um, and then, in the spring, Taurus season is where we find two. Um, the that material will reemerge, transformed in something new that we won't even be recognizable.
Yeah, that's so
um,
cool. It receives the bounty without yeah, with open
exactly.
arms. Yeah, right.
And that's yin, right? Yin accepts all, rejects none. It accepts the rotting, right? Because we have maybe more than we needed from the harvest, and things are starting to go bad. And so, what do we have to do? We have to give it back to the earth. So that's really how I like to orient to 14 from a human design perspective. Kind of similar to what I just said, but it's very associated with like money and resources. This is one of those gates that is part of Penta, which is like a way that humans are designed to work together. And this specific gate it kind of speaks to whether the organization or the group will be successful materially and have money or not. They say if you have 14 in the penta, then your organization will always, get the money that they need. And if you're having a hard time, maybe you need a 14. That's a way
Oh, I did not know
overgeneralization,
that. I
but
gotta go
just to give
find
you a
one. I
little
gotta find one. Yeah.
I got one. It's my Mercury.
Alright, Sarah, hey. Come on, to bring your wagon of coins over. Um, no, I love that's so cool. I love that it's across from the 2 and it's that bounty and that yeah, that image of these, like, jack-o'-lanterns rotting back to the soil after you've carved them and you're not eating them, but you're like, "Oh, yeah, this is gonna be make great, beautiful, rich soil." And it also reminds me of, like, the Pluto rulership of Scorpio as this final gate. Like, Pluto is Hades in Greek mythology and is not only the lord of the underworld, but also the lord of gold and the lord of riches. So bringing up
Hmm.
this
Oh, I didn't know
wagon
that actually.
yeah, yeah, because the underworld is where the riches are, like the ore, and that kind of ties into metal, like with from the earth arises, and it is through that process of transformation, condensation, there is metallic ore contained within the earth. And so it's like you have to go underground. I mean, it's about you may all know about mining, and that's a way that we access gold, and that's an extractive way, but in an alchemical way there's this like you have to get into the negredo, the darkness, the blackening before the albedo comes, which is this whitening. It's in the alchemical process it's a similar thing that happens. You have to go all the way into the dark, into the underworld, and that's where the gold is. That's where the riches are. And so the fact that this is the final gate, I'd never heard of it just explained that way, but it just brings it full circle. It's so beautiful.
Mm, so rich. This was so fun.
Truly, truly. Thank you so, so much for all of your insights. I've learned so much. Every time I talk to you, I learn so much about just these intricacies and dynamics that happen within these charts and within these gates and just how it ties into the seasonality. And what an honor to be with you on your birthday week and during this season that's so impactful for you personally. And I see how you have transmuted a lot of personal experiences that haven't always been easy to really bring that service to the table, to really know what it is that you're offering your clients and people you work with and your community. And that's so beautiful to witness that transformative and alchemical process in and of itself. It really is something that you're shining outward with that creativity, that gate one. So thank you, thank you, thank
Mm.
you, thank you. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you so much. This has been such a gift to be able to share on, yeah, just like share this well of wisdom around these things that has been hard earned, as you said, and I just always want to be talking about Scorpio. So thank you so much for this invitation, and likewise have loved learning about the gates through your orientation and weaving together all of these different cycles of time. So I look forward to future conversations, inviting you on my podcast, which is coming soon. Um, and yeah, hopefully more conversations here as well. So thank you so much, Allison.
Oh my gosh, there will be many more. I foresee lots more will come about. I would love if you could tell the people about how to find you, how to work with you, what your podcast will be if you're ready to share that. And yeah, I just love to spread you the wealth of your wisdom.
Absolutely. Yeah, so you can find me at sarah.belpedio on Instagram. I do offer human design readings. And I definitely bring a scorpionic flavor to my human design reading. So I really like to look at the chart and see what conditioning is ready to die, like what in your life is ready to be composted. And this happens any time of year, not just in Scorpio season. We're always being asked to offer things, back to the alchemical fire. But I really love to look at the open centers to really identify the conditioning and the stories and the energy that is ready to be released and alchemized so the truest, purest expression of who you are can shine through. And so I offer a very kind of metallic approach, a very short. I have started calling myself a sword sharpener, where I really feel like what I do is frequency attunement. It is sharpening the precision of your frequency. So I offer that through human design, which you can find the link in my bio on my Instagram. And my forthcoming podcast is called The Heart of Being. And I'm hoping to release it within the next week or two, but also I'm cognizant of Mercury retrograde. So I kind of haven't fully decided if I'm going to wait until after retrograde or not. But that is forthcoming, and we will be exploring human design through a Taoist lens. So if you like Allison's work and the way that she's been working with the I Ching and the Taoist 5 element cycle, then I think you'll also like my podcast. And also just exploring all of the things that I'm interested in, somatics, traditional Chinese medicine, exploring the roots of human design. So not just the I Ching, but also the Kabbalah, the chakra system. I'm really wanting to kind of reroute human design into these ancient lineages that inform it, these ancient wisdom traditions that create the synthesis that is human design. And it'll be just like very casual conversations with friends over tea. So yeah, inviting you to tune into that whenever that's live. And if you live in Santa Fe, I would love to have tea. I host tea at the School of Liminal Arts Dojo every other Wednesday, and I typically share that on my Instagram as well. So would love to connect with anybody who's here in Santa Fe as well. I really am trying to move more of my interactions like in person. They're just so much. I'm just more of an IRL person than an online person. So yeah, that's
Certainly,
how you
yeah.
can find me.
Thank you for all these juicy invitations. I haven't had tea at the Sola Dojo yet with you, and I plan on it, but I have had tea with you at your tea table, and it was such a beautiful experience to touch in that way. So I'm so grateful to know that you're in this community and to call you a friend. And thank you so much again for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you to everyone who's made it to the end of this episode, this beautiful conversation with Sarah Belpedio. I definitely recommend looking her up and following her work on Instagram and her podcast as it comes out. Yeah, super beautiful resource to tap into in the community of Santa Fe and beyond. So again, happy Scorpio season, happy Samhain, happy Halloween, happy Dia de los Muertos, and happy season where the veil is thin, where we can connect with these deeper truths and touch into our innate creativity through that. So again, you can follow me on Instagram at astro.somatics or on Substack at cyclesoftime.substack.com. I look forward to connecting with you more, and I'll see you again for the next zodiac season overview episode, which will be Sagittarius season coming up not too long from now. And if anyone out there listening is a Sagittarius, has Sagittarius placements, and is interested in coming on the show, hit me up, send me a DM. And also, if you're interested in chatting with me for my Paradigm Shift series about 2027 in human design, or the Aries 0 degree point where Neptune and Saturn are meeting, or any of these bigger cycles that are happening over the coming years, I would love to hear from you as well. So please reach out if you'd be interested in coming on the show and talking about the upcoming seasonal episode, or one of these bigger paradigm shifts episodes. So I'll talk to you again soon, everyone. Have a beautiful, beautiful day.